I'm doing a video. Okay. What's? I need to change. Okay. All right. What's it? No. Give in to what? Still no. What? All right. So then, what is this week's video about? We mean check the. All right. I'll check it. Oh. We're gonna be serious. Is that gonna work? Find out. So, violence in television, or why humans are pathetic. There's been a lot of uproar on the internet, and when I say a lot of uproar, I mean a very vocal minority complaining about The Walking Dead premiere. And it brings up this whole question of what is too much violence on television. There's always been violence in media. Going back to novels and books and comic books. Hell, radio broadcasts like War of the Worlds could have technically, by today's standards, while very tame, if you kind of inverted them in a way, that would be considered, it was very violent because it was very evocative. It made you think things. And that's what The Walking Dead did. They actually showed very little violence, in my opinion. You saw a couple of good whacks. Oh, by the way, spoilers. There will be spoilers talked about in this episode of The Breakdown news broadcast, whatever we call it here. So, we get 2 deaths in The Walking Dead premiere. 2 characters who've been around for quite a while. Glenn, who had been around since the first episode of season 1, and Abraham, who had been around since season 4. A good writer in any medium, whether it's television, radio, comics, novels, whatever, get you attached. They bring you into that world to the point where anything that happens in that world affects you as well. That is the mark of a very good writer. So when we have Abraham die, at the end of last season we saw someone get hit, blood come down across the lens, and Negan say something and then hit him again. I, for one, kind of thought it was going to be Abraham just because of the way that he took the hit. And it turns out I was right. I called Abraham being hit with the bat being killed. But we see Abraham get hit, and I think this is what a lot of people are missing. They're missing the point of these deaths. They think it's violence for violence sakes because they're not invested in the actual show, or at least the people who are complaining aren't. You see, Abraham dies, he takes one shot to the head, and he doesn't fall down. He keeps his head up high, he tells Negan off, essentially goes, "Suck my nuts!" And then he gets hit again. You see, Abraham didn't lose. The apocalypse didn't get Abraham. He didn't go out by a zombie, he went out by a human, basically using theatrics and his willingness to do violence to people to win. So in Abraham's mind, and even in my mind, I don't see Abraham as a casualty of the apocalypse. Abraham was a casualty of what this show is very good at showing is the depravity of a human once he's pushed over the edge. And this show depicts, I think, really very well, along with the comics, the kind of things that could possibly happen to the human psyche in these kind of instances. So we see 2 shots on Negan, and then that's it. After that, all we see is shots from the knees up of Negan slinging the bat at the ground with some very good Foley work. So in your mind, you're seeing Abraham get his head impaled and busted and cracked open, but you're not. You're not actually seeing that. What you're seeing is essentially this. Like right now, if I added in some sound effects, you would hear squish, squish. You know, if it wasn't done in a joking way, your brain would go, "Oh my God, he's hitting something." And I've done this in a short film of mine, and I may put the scene right here over my shoulder.
What are you doing? No. This?
See, now when people first saw that scene, I mean, it's shot in a very grainy way. It's shot, by no means do I think I am the greatest filmmaker of all time, because I'm not. If I was, I'd be doing it more than just doing this kind of stuff. But a lot of people who saw that, including the person who I'm supposed to be hitting, when he saw that back, he got chills. Because of that sound, because of how it was done, it just played perfectly. In his brain box, he imagined himself getting hit with a sledgehammer. But then getting back to The Walking Dead, we got Glenn. Glenn was a little more visceral, but Glenn was a little more visceral for a reason. You see, in issue 100 of The Walking Dead, Glenn dies in the exact same way. Verbatim. This whole episode takes about 4 pages of that comic book and puts it on the screen. Which is, what, in my opinion, a very good adaptation of a comic book.
Back to it.
You have Glenn who takes the shot, goes down, gets back up, and he's not thinking about himself. He's not thinking about self-preservation. He's thinking about Maggie. He's thinking about the love of his life, and he tells her, "I'll find you," is what he actually said. And then he gets hit again, and then again we get a shot above ground of Negan swinging away, not really hitting anything. But we get very good Foley, and then we see the aftermath, just like we did with Abraham. We get a quick shot of a dummy, a prosthetic dummy with like goop all over it. And then after that, we never really see it again. Even at the end, when they pick up the bodies and they move them, you never actually see what it looks like. Because a good storyteller, if done right, you see all that in your head. It goes back to writing. You know, it goes back to novels, and it goes back to short stories, and it goes back to one of the oldest forms of communication there is. Writing shit down on paper. You imagine, well not imagine, you envision what Glenn's body looks like. So the violence isn't on television, it's in your head. And it's always been that way. Jaws was a book. Rambo was a book. You know, there are comic books out there that are way worse than what we just saw on television. There are novels way worse than what we just saw. And unfortunately, this backlash on violence on television, it comes from a very vocal minority. It comes from groups like the PTC who have been trying to basically sterilize all forms of media for a long time. And when I say vocal minority, I mean a very vocal minority, because I honestly think most of the comments online are by a small group of people. And a lot of these media companies base their products on this vocal minority because the people who enjoy it aren't there complaining. They're not sitting there leaving comments. They're not going on the internet raging. That's the people, like, okay, we got this small little group of people complaining, but we've got 20.8 million people who watched that premiere. So, in the grand scheme of things, was it too violent for the audience, or was it too violent for this handful of people comparisonably? And it was too violent for this handful of people comparingly because they either aren't fans of the show and don't know what's going on, B, they're just doing it for the lulz, which a lot of people who go online and complain do it because it makes them feel like they're, it's the anonymity of the internet that gives them some kind of ego stroke. But it brings me to another point of why humans have become pathetic. It's this mob mentality. It's this jump on the bandwagon and follow a specific thing just so we can say, oh, I agree with that. Like, I'm in line with that. I mean, we're going through that on a large scale right now in our presidential election. We have 2 idiots completely running for president. One of these 2 idiots is going to be elected president. And you just have to hitch your wagon to one or the other. No matter what comes out about any of them, you know, it's, well, we're kind of screwed one way or the other. And people have hitched their wagons to what they say, and we've never had more freedoms as a culture in America than we have right now. And we are allowing this herd mentality and this don't want to hurt your feelings that come from the vocal minority to determine our society. We are scarily approaching segregation again, not invoked by law, but because I don't feel safe around these people, so I need my space, and I don't want to have to deal with this. Like, this is a pretty odd city. It is very mixed culturally, always has been, and I live right outside of it. And I've kind of gotten to see and people observe the way things go, and the rest of the country is very odd, or at least in these big cities. You have some very popular YouTubers on the West Coast who have a lot of influence, who are so segregated in their safe little bubble in their little California town that they don't know what the rest of the world is like, or the rest of the country for that matter. And they have this blind following of people who scream and like follow them blindly. And it's kind of scary that any one person or any one group of people can garner that kind of following just because of the internet. I know what you're saying. There's Wayne is trying to do the exact same thing. No, in all honesty, after years and years of trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I think what I've always wanted to do and always tried to do is be a journalist of some sort. To bring information and make people think. Whether you follow me or you do it, it doesn't matter. I just want you to think. I want you to be informed. I want you to have your own opinion. Whether it's mine or if it's somebody else's, or if it's your own. Let it be your own. We have the entire world's information at our fingertips. Like, a 5-minute Google search can inform you, but what we have is a society and a culture where they see a headline on a clickbait article on their Facebook feed, and they spout that like it's, gospel. And half the time it's from some parody or, joke website basically putting crap up just to get click views to make money. And that's why I kind of say humanity is pathetic at this point. And it's sad, I don't want to say that, but that's how it's come, that's what it's come to. So is there a line in which, we can pass that, would be too violent? I don't know. I really don't know. I have a pretty stone constitution, I guess. When it comes to fake violence, I can't stand watching real violence. Like, I don't know how people can sit and watch these videos where people get hurt and bones breaking. Ugh, I can't. That to me, but it's fake. Like, we know Steven Yeun and Michael Cutlass aren't dead. We saw them on Talking Dead after the fact. They're actors. What happened on that screen was not real. And I think that's what we all need to step back and realize. What we see on television and TV shows isn't real. It's storytelling. How violent at times is the Bible? Pretty violent. But we're complaining about Negan killing Abraham and Glenn on The Walking Dead. Just think about that. I also live in a town where violence is pretty prevalent. I mean, last week there was a murder about a mile from my house in New Orleans Parish, because I live that close to New Orleans. There was a murder just a mile away. And, you know, people wander the neighborhoods around here at night just trying to break into people's cars and things. That's the reality in which we live in. But we're complaining about a fictional TV show in which, with the dying breaths of two characters in which we have come to appreciate and love, we miss out on Abraham's refusal to lose and Glenn's undying love for Maggie. That's what we missed. Or what most of you missed. I got it. I thought it was very poignant. But just think, people. That's all I ask. So until next time, this is Wayne for WGSA NOLA. We're out.